Today I show you how to stamp with multiple colors using a big background stamp and make it shine. Also I show you how to be creative and to cut one big sheet in two pieces, so you can make two different cards from one stamped image. Hello, it's Cisvolk. Time to enjoy card making with me. I use a mandala background stamp from Aliexpress store. A stamp on smooth paper. The smoother, the better. Make sure that there are no air bulbs behind the stamp. I chose water-based ink. This is Memento ink. I position them in such a way that I have an idea of how I'm going to spread the colors. I use a blending tool or just makeup sponges to let the colors blend into each other. You can rinse them well after use and use them again next time, when dry. I started carefully adding ink with the sponge. But, as you can see, the print is not clear enough. To speed up the process, I stamp directly on the stamp. But after that, I blend the edges of the ink each time with the sponge to let the ink blend together. So stamp ink on a part of the stamp, blend the edges of the ink and then stamp on the paper. Continue until the image is as saturated as you want. Be aware of the dark colors. As you can see, this blue color dominates a bit, making the center and one edge look a little less beautiful and too dark. I touch up a few more spots. And here I ink the entire outer edge with yellow ink. I do this to let the colors enhance a little more. Clean the stamp well. I do this with a water spray can and a microfiber cloth. The image must be dry to continue with the next step. You may already recognize my self-made embossing pouch, which consists of a double knotted pantyhose with baby talc powder in it. The powder that comes out ensures that no embossing powder will stick to places where you don't want it. I'm now stamping with Versamark ink, my favorite embossing ink. Aliexpress store sells her own embossing ink. I don't have it, but I'll put a link in the description for you if you are interested in buying one. I use Aliexpress transparent embossing powder. Heat setting is always so magical. I think this is one of the most fun things to watch. I'm satisfied with the result. Next time I should be more careful with blue and red blending together. Often it's also a matter of trying it out. You can also use a color chart. The transparent embossing on top makes it extra shiny and stand out. Now comes the hardest and most creative part. To decide how to use such a great background, cut it up and search for matching items. Eat, craft, sleep, repeat could be nice when centered on a large square card. "You inspire me" fits very well on the side. There are several texts that can go well with it. Be creative and use anything you have that fits your style and occasion. Thank you would be nice too. I've cut an A4 paper in half and I now score it at 10.5 cm for my card base. To determine how and where I want to cut, I picked a die with about the same size of the card. I use it to search for the best place for cutting the panel. The image is too large for my die cutting machine. That's why I mark where I can cut best. First the corners of the die, then with the T-ruler. Double check. Ow, that hurts a bit. I will use this leftover piece for the second card. The panel is slightly smaller than the card base. I did this on purpose. I sign it off so that it has equal distance on all sides. I erase the pencil lines. To make the text stand out better, I want to stamp on black paper. With the help of the lines on my stamping tool, I can align the text straight. If you don't have that, use a checkered paper instead. Make it anti-static again with talc powder and stamp with Versamark ink. If I hold the image up to the light, I can see exactly if the print has been successful. I stamp a second time for a better result. I will wipe off the talc powder after embossing. I use Aliexpress white embossing powder. You can see how beautiful this effect is with the white embossing powder. Apparently I either didn't use enough talcum powder or I didn't tap the embossing powder properly, because there's exactly a white grain in the letter P and that bothers me. To get it off, I scratch it with a tool I got when I bought a Scratchcraft package for children. It would also work fine with a blunt knife. Later you will see me touch it up with a black permanent marker, because I don't want to damage the paper and scratch too much. You saw me draw lines using the T-ruler where I want to cut. I choose to cut around the overhanging parts of the letters. If I would have drawn the lines above and below the uppercase text, the text strip would become too thick, and I avoided that this way. how I cover up the white dot in the letter P with a permanent marker. I use a Faber-Castell size XS. I'm using a scrap of the back of used tape. This way I can cut my foam tape to size more easily and it does not stick to my scissors. I color the edges of the foam tape with a black Arteza permanent marker. That way you can't see the white foam stand out behind the black strip. I use the T-ruler to stick my strips straight on. Such a ruler is so handy. I'll cut off the overhanging edges. Before I stick the panel to the card base, I want to stamp the back first. You can personalize your card to let it show that it's a handmade card. I choose to stamp "Created with Care" on it. This stamp set is super handy for this. There's a link in the description below. I make the paper anti-static with the talc powder and stamp with Memento Lux permanent ink. I clean the stamp with a little water from a spray bottle and a microfiber cloth. You do not necessarily have to buy such a spray can in a hobby store. They are also sold in budget stores. Now I'm going to try to color the paint splatter in the same colors as the card. I use the same technique as with the large stamp. Stamp a small piece and soften the edges with the makeup sponge. I think it looks great. In between I clean the stamp so that my ink pad does not get dirty. Notice that I use a blue microfiber cloth for watercolor inks and a pink one for permanent or archival inks. I decide to emboss this print as well for an extra glossy effect. Adding glossy accents could also be used, of course, but with transparent embossing it's slightly thinner. With a Micron 05 fine liner, an archival ink-based pen, I write my name underneath. I wish I could hand letter better than this, but okay, it's also nice if the recipient of the card can see that it's handmade. I'm going to glue the panel to the front of the card base now. I prefer to use Aliexpress double-sided tape for this. It comes in different widths. with glue, you sometimes have the problem that your paper will bubble or that the panel will come loose over time. You don't have that with this double-sided tape. It's much sturdier than a double-sided tape with a white tearable strip in between. You can't tear it, you have to cut it, which is a bit more difficult, but because it's so sturdy, even a very thin roll remains intact and sticks very firmly. This is the best way to put it on. Just release tiny strips of the backing paper on all 4 corners and pull them off when the panel is in the right place. The first card is ready, but I'm not done yet. I will of course make a matching envelope with it. I use the same colors in the same technique. I also stamped the text in gradient shades. It's best to start with the lightest color to prevent your ink pads from getting dirty. And here you see the result. Take a try to make your own. It's not that difficult, just try and use my tips. Now I will continue with the leftover piece. I decided to cut it in half and stick it in opposite corners. But because this is quite bare, with only these 2 parts, I stamped the corners with the same stamp in black underneath. Unfortunately, the corners are not symmetrical, so I have to reapply the stamp to the stamping tool. I roughly cut out the stamped images to see better how it will fit. I use a piece of plastic to protect my card. Now I can see where to stamp the other part. I remove the plastic and stamp again. I heat set it to avoid smearing my work. I blow on both sides of the paper to prevent the paper from bulging. I made a similar text strip like I made for the first card. To make the cutting easier, I first draw a pencil line. I did this for both corners. When fuzzy cutting, you hold your scissors straight and turn your paper. You can easily smooth out the paper with a bone folder. To fill in the middle, I make a colored border of paper and use the makeup sponges again. To prevent ink from getting on my fingers or fingerprints on the paper, I stick a piece of purple tape on my fingers. If you have present seal, you could also use that. I'm not very accurate this time. Most of the ink will be covered by the black text strip. I heat set it to dry. I stamped the entire strip with Versamark ink. And now I sprinkle clear embossing powder over it. I use wax paper, in this case tracing paper, which makes it easy for me to get the embossing powder back into the jar. When the embossing powder has cooled down, I cut out the edges in the same shape as the stamp. This interrupts it slightly and makes it fit better. Here you see how I glued the strip under the sentiment. The card is finished. Now another envelope. That's done quickly. With the card I was able to practice with blending and stamping. And again I put some yellow on the edge. On the back of the card I stamped a red palette. The cards are finished. I hope I was able to inspire you and give you a lot of tips. Tag me on Instagram or Facebook, Cisvolk, to show me what you made. Please subscribe to my channel Cisvolk and hit the bell button. Then you don't miss any of my new cards. In the subscriptions below you will find all links to the products of Alina Crafts. The links are affiliate links. When you use my links I get a little commission on this. It costs you nothing extra and helps me to spend more time making even more YouTube videos. Thanks for watching! Don't forget to comment, like and follow me. I'll see you next time!